Good morning, everyone. It's hard to follow such an inspiring presentation. Thank you very much. I'm pleased to say that in this process we're doing, and I'm going to talk about, I feel I'm on this side. Because I really am very energized from the results we're getting in really collaborating with the people in these projects. What I'm still looking for is the success. We still have to prove that. So just to be very, very clear, we have not figured it out or have kind of a magic formula, but we're doing some really interesting work. So I'll just talk about that in a few minutes. James has already introduced me, so I work for the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. We're a global association of about 200 multinational companies from various sectors, a total of 3 sectors. And they use WBCSD as a platform to engage with other stakeholders, to learn from each other, and to really bring business solutions to a sustainable world. So the Buildings project is one of our major projects since a number of years. And we're focusing on energy efficiency in buildings. Under the leadership of Lafarge and United Technologies, who started this almost 10 years ago, we first started by trying to understand the barriers for energy efficiency in various markets around the world. That was a project of around 4 years that ended in 2010 with a report that came out with generic recommendations on how we can overcome those market barriers. And we are now in the 2.0, not very inspiring, but it's the second project, where we're really trying to apply those recommendations in various markets around the world. And what we're trying is to really unlock investments in these markets by addressing the shared value. And it comes back to, what does value mean? Is it just my value? Is it a common value that we can all unlock? And the companies believe that we can grow the market together, and we all play a role in that bigger market, rather than having a specific size and we all compete for parts of it. So I think your presentation couldn't have been better to really show that kind of mindset that is needed to do this. And of course, we're looking at specific market barriers in each market to try to overcome and develop actions that can overcome those market barriers. Of course, it's the companies driving it, and you see them here displayed, but we really also need our partner networks. They're complementary networks that help us work in these markets and then also bring the good practice back to a global level to share it with others. And we're very pleased with working with World Green Building Council in all our engagements. Your national networks are with us and really helping us to bring the key stakeholders together. Then, of course, Urban Land Institute, IEA from the International Energy Agency, and our own global network. We also have business councils in 67 countries that also complement our effort. So I wanted to talk about one example, and that's Poland. I don't know if Alicia is here. I think we have. Hello, yes, good to see you again. So this was one of our first laboratories. You mentioned the name that we did last year. And the purpose of a laboratory is really to bring the stakeholders from the fragmented value chain together to interview a good number of them on one day and have a technical committee of experts analyzing those findings and coming up with possible actions that can overcome the market barriers that came up in those interviews. And this whole group will be recruited into the action plan afterwards. So it's really an effort where if you come in, you're being asked to stay in and continuously engage. So actually the laboratory is not the end, it's really the start of then the engagement and action process. So this happened in June of last year. We had several of our companies supporting it, a lot of partners in Poland, but also international partners coming together and helping us. And what we've been fortunate to create is a platform of organizations that have done work in this space, but they have done it a bit in their own ways and not with enough collaboration to really make maybe a bigger step. And the key thing we heard is we all struggle to engage the public sector. And so what this platform has created is a stage where these conversations can take place. Now, several things came out of this laboratory. We have an action plan with a total of 20 actions. That's a lot. So we have grouped them now into 3 groups. And in each of these groups, companies have signed up to lead the work and to develop specific actions. So on awareness and co-benefits, several market players said, we need better case studies in Poland that really talk about what is happening here, and not in the US or other European countries, but what are the good case examples here. On disclosure, that really surprised me most. There are many companies that we really need to work on the data, bring it together what we have a joint methodology, and drive our market through that. And then also on trainings for different parts of the value chain, especially facility managers and others. So some very concrete things have come out of that, and also that desire to really improve the way the different stakeholders work together. And the success still has to be proven. We're now getting these groups started. This is now locally driven. So as WBCSD, we have already stepped a little bit back, but we're going back and saying, okay, how can we now make sure we really deliver some actions and finally some results through these working groups. I have to be very brief. I could go on for a long time about Poland, but maybe later on we can discuss a bit. So we're doing this kind of process in 7 markets. These are kind of pilot markets for us, but we do hope that this kind of process can be replicated by other organizations. And I'm so happy that with James, we talked already many months ago, how can we bring this knowledge into the work you are starting? Because your 13 networks are going to start similar stakeholder engagement processes. Now, you can start from here or from there. This is just one approach, and I think it's interesting to share. So in all markets, we come up with similar issues. So we've grouped them in action areas around awareness, around the workforce capacity, of course, financing, a very important part, the verification of value and data, and how do we make it bankable, etc., and policy. So this is the content stuff, and most markets struggle with the same issues. Context slightly different, but that's where we need to generate more knowledge and more experience sharing as well. But then really the process, I just wanted to share what are some of the success factors that we see in these processes. It is private sector led, but it's not just the private sector. It really brings the other groups in. But that's very important because there are many processes that somehow leave the private sector on the side. Or there are also private sector initiatives that fail to engage the other stakeholders. And it's extremely important that happens. And it's important to have a neutral convening body. And GBCs can play that role, as we do currently in these markets. As the WBCSD, we come in with a group of organizations who have a joint vision and want to drive things together. So that's very important and neutral and trusted convener for this process. And I just mentioned it, really involve all the key stakeholders. So before doing a laboratory, you need to really do the mapping of who are the key stakeholders. So we usually start with a kickoff meeting where we just bring in those we know. And then those people will tell us, here's all the others you need to bring in. So it's a process over several months to actually just identify the right stakeholders. Then we do the laboratory, we do interviews, we bring together the technical committee, and then we do something a bit bigger to announce the findings and make sure we create a momentum for that forward action plan. And then again, some months go by because we need to write the action plan and make sure people start owning it. So in Poland, it's been a year since we started. And we had the lab relatively quickly in June, and it took us quite a while to come up with the action plan. We only launched in December, so we had the feeling, oh, we're really slow and nothing's happening. But I think we've now managed to really create the groups that go forward. Success, we can only prove it once these groups start also delivering. So the action orientation is very important. We hear everywhere, oh, you're just another group coming in and wants to do a workshop. So I think it's very important that we can create that sense of, no, we're here for the longer term. So a 2-year time frame is always a challenge, especially most of the activities will be in year 2. So we see that. We started with a 3-year project, and we know we probably need to go longer because you need to really stay involved. And we're handing over to then the local people. We really need to identify who are the local champions, those that see the value propositions for everyone, those that can break out of this mindset into the other. That's the key people. So in one word, this whole process is about identifying the right people that can really then pull others and really adapt the process in each country. So we have a blueprint, but every time it looks a little bit different. And that's what makes it so interesting and why I'm really on this side of your equation. last point, we discussed that a bit with James. What we did at the end of our first project was, as WBCSD, we come up with recommendations, but we also need to walk the talk. So we issued a manifesto, nothing communistic, but it's a EEB manifesto that companies signed to say, we're going to measure our own energy consumption, we're going to take targets, and we're going to start reporting on our progress and engage our stakeholders. And we have today the 140 companies that signed it. We asked them, what are you doing after about 3 years? And not a lot have done very much. Some have done really impressive things. So we just captured that in a small publication last year. I have a few copies here, just to also show it's important that we from the private sector also walk the talk. And we don't just ask other people to do something, but really we need to implement it ourselves as well. So that was also the purpose of bringing that into each of these market engagements. So I hope that's a little bit inspiring also for the rest of the day. I certainly look forward to also learning from the other experiences, because we still have a lot of work to do going forward on this. Thank you very much.